Is there even a chance? You've been talking in circles since I've been able to cry. There's never been any reason, never telling me why. Yeah, saying my life, I'm going down for the last time.
I like that song. Okay, there's a Philly cheesesteak. I think the guy is from maybe New Jersey. They opened that up a while ago. The wind, I'll have to talk loud. So that's kind of neat. I've gone there maybe once or twice. This is, now, your courthouse is over there. I was thinking I'll take a ride maybe to Port Aransas. And it came to my mind because those that watch the hurricane stuff and all, let's see if I stand by this sign. Okay. I noticed they did a news clip last night. One of the mayors or somebody from Port A. And it was interesting because what he indicated was sort of like the storm has passed. The town of Port A, really, which is right that way, they got kind of devastated. But he said they're not getting any money. Basically, they're upset. He even made like a comment about Rockport. He said, we don't have George Strait coming to our town. George Strait, famous country star. I guess he went to Rockport and did a benefit because maybe he's from there. Oh, make sure I don't turn it off. And then he indicated that the storm has passed, the city is devastated, and then he said it's sort of like they're stuck. And he mentioned something interesting. He said their economy, which is true, is based solely on tourism. Port Aransas was a very beautiful beach town. Next to it is a little town called Aransas Pass. And years ago, when I first rode the area, I did it on a motorcycle once when I was still living in Kingsville. When I had the 850, you can ride, it was 850 Suzuki, you could ride all around this water and you hit all those little towns. And it was a nice ride I took many, many years ago. But he said because we are a tourist town, and obviously for the next few years they're not going to be bringing in tourist money like they were, they're in a situation where the town might never really rebuild. It's kind of what there was a little somewhat of panic on there. Sort of like the storm has passed. FEMA basically, they're not concerned, and the money for FEMA is not really to rebuild a city or a town. It's just emergency. If people have no shelter, then they go somewhere else. And I mentioned this a while ago that the schools, I don't know if they changed it, but they told the students, the kids going to school in that school district of Port Aransas, to go to another town and enroll because they're not sure how long before the schools can be fixed. And so you do have the possibility that that town will never recover. There'll be people, locals, that will stay there and try and reopen. But because of what that man said, I forget who he was, but he said our economy is tourism. And he's right. There's not like a whole lot of other money that comes into that place. So I figured I'd give you a nice view. That's the Philly cheesesteak guy behind me, the restaurant that is. That's the Lexington. And the incident I mentioned on the first video, by the way, took place right up in that area downtown. When I see something as simple as that, meaning it wasn't really a big thing, but to me, you know, they talked about how the enforcement of law, you know, and they jailed him. And then when I see all of the other kind of stuff, that it's like more serious stuff, the cases I talked about, judges and articles about covering for money laundering, it shows me more like it's more like of a game in the sense that it's serious crime that doctor is accused of, and maybe he is guilty of it. But it showed me like the impression to the public is see how we crack down. But really, a lot of the stuff I talked about the last few weeks, that's the serious stuff in the sense of whether or not there's embedded corruption, that maybe you deal with the fringe things that the public is more concerned with, like we don't want people running around in the streets shooting people, and obviously nobody wants that. But if you have kingmakers, one of the actual credible news reports talked about those that are in authority here in this county. Some were kingmakers. What does that mean? How is somebody a kingmaker? Those terms are used sometimes in organized crime. The city could have potential. When I first came up to Corpus Christi, I always loved North Beach, and it reminded me more of the beach communities of like going to the shore. In New Jersey, we'd go down to the beach, to the shore, Jersey Shore. And this reminded me of that. And I liked it. And I liked North Beach. I thought, oh, you know, a friend of mine, I won't mention too many names. There's a lot of crime they mentioned that goes on North Beach. And when I heard that a couple years ago, I thought, oh, I thought North Beach was like maybe a nice, me and my wife used to come up and rent a room. I didn't stop here for that purpose, but in this inn, it's called the Seashell Inn. When we lived in Kingsville, we would come up here, we did it a few times, and we would just rent a room in this hotel right here. And then you'd have the day, you know, on the beach. All of that's nice. But like I said, a friend of mine told me there's a lot of crime going on right out in North Beach, and I was surprised when I heard that. That's kind of the history, actually, of some of the stuff I was talking about earlier. You had the casinos, you had the Philadelphia mob guy, Nicky Scarfo. And, I don't glorify those documentaries. I find them interesting. I think Sammy the Bull Gravano just got out. Just made, I thought he was in the witness protection program and stuff, and he had plastic surgery. I've liked reading, and I had a friend reading books on the mob and all. It's just interesting, that's all, not to glorify it. I had a friend, I mentioned him the other day, I won't give the name again, but he used to think that I was in the mafia because of the Italian New Jersey and all. And one night there were another friend of mine, a person that works on the street as a ministry. They were going to stop by my house just to see if I was there. It was a few years ago. And the other person said, was really afraid. That the other person told me, like, no. And I remember I told that particular friend one day on the street, because they kept asking, are you in the mafia? And I said, I'm connected. I said, but I'm connected to God. And you know, you could teach, and I've taught some of this before in Scripture, apostles have like a fathering ministry, meaning they're like church planners, as I teach the book of Acts. And you relate to various Christian families that you plant, meaning you bring the gospel. Paul, we're teaching in Acts. And really, in a way, with the whole Godfather scene and all, of course, God is our Father. And sometimes you can take principles, organized principles, and even implement them in a way that is not abiding by law. But the principles actually work. You know, I took that ride into Mexico maybe a year or so ago, and I did videos when I went into Mexico. I didn't plan I was going to go. But there was an author by the name of John Eldridge, and I read his book, Wild and Heart or something. It's a very good book, and I've read a lot of books over the years. Well, what they found out was somehow that book, Wild at Heart, the one that John Eldridge wrote, principles of adventure that's in us. God put the heart of adventure in humans. The Mexican drug cartels, that book was popular. They were reading the books. Somehow this came out that they thought, oh, this is so interesting. And then when this was reported that they were using the books and maybe the principles, they were asking John Elridge, a Christian author, are you going to come out and condemn the use of your book? Meaning, are you going to come out and say something like, I don't want you reading it, or something of that nature? And I don't know if he ever did that, but initially he didn't do it. And I agreed with him in the sense that it would have been an easier position to say, no, don't be reading my Christian books. Mexican drug cartel. What's the guy's name? Forget. Chapo. But I think what he did was wise. Because however his Christian book became real popular among the cartels, maybe he thought, you know what? It's better for them, even if they have a wrong motive, and even if they're using the principles in the wrong way, it's better for them to keep reading Christian material. It's better for them to stay to maybe groups, organized crime and others, maybe they get off track because of the excitement of things that go on, the excitement of the world. Maybe if they could find that it can be exciting to be a part of the kingdom, you can deal with issues, you can be active, you can be involved. It's not just about reading the words of the Bible. I would imagine the degree of people up in that area there. I'd show you this background, but I'm trying to hide behind this for the wind. I'm imagining some of them probably go to the Catholic cathedral like I go to, and we know the history of the mafia with the Catholic Church and all. And I'm imagining people justify. I just mentioned that little case of the doctor. That's not a big thing to me. Obviously, that doctor has come on some hard times. And I read his case a while ago, not recently. And then I read what I mentioned on the first video. But when people in a community are afraid, because they're not just afraid of the normal crime a person would be afraid of on the street, getting mugged, getting shot by a drive-by. What makes them people that know about a lot of the stuff that goes on, it's knowing that people that are in those positions also practice that stuff. That makes people think that area is off limits. That area is, and maybe some of you that thought of relocating or businesses. This is the port of Corpus Christi. We've had some another article in the paper that some of the businesses are being affected because of various other reasons. But when people hear about corruption and it's associated with this county, that also plays people that might think the aesthetic beauty of a place is wonderful, which it is. It's very pretty here. But then they see a lot of that. That's really the media headquarters. Well, KRIS News is right over there. KIII TV is off of another street I pass, one of the main streets. So this would be number 2. I was thinking possibly of taking the ride to Port Aransas because, like I said, that official that was speaking seemed to indicate they were in trouble because the storm's done, the damage is done, but it was almost a little bit of like he was worried, like, hey, this thing ain't going to get rebuilt, and it might not. That city might not ever really recover. And that was part of a lot of the stuff we talked about. So just hopefully you'll enjoy the view on this one. That song I like, Head East. Sometimes I just go when that song comes on.